Hello, yellers. Welcome to Why Am I Yelling? Musings from a middle-aged menopausal mom. I'm your host, Krista Rizzo, an election poll worker, political and community organizer, and a passionate advocate for humanity. That's me. Today, we are talking about something that might not be as flashy as hot flashes, but it's just as powerful, and that is your vote. Your vote. I really wanted to be chatting about, Halloween with you guys today. I had the whole episode mapped out, but I really, my conscience and my advocacy for humanity got the better of me, and I just feel like there's some things that are more important than candy and costumes. And that is making sure that we are talking about the importance of votes. I understand better than most how exhausting politics can feel and get and be. It is not something, politics in general, are not something that I ever thought that I would be involved in. It is not something I was interested in as a young person. I learned about government. I learned about I took an econ class, I took that kind of stuff, but I was never interested or involved in it. I was involved in student government and class council and those kinds of things. So maybe I kind of was involved in it. I didn't get passionate about it until really recently. For those of you who don't know, my husband works not in the news business, and so it is not something that escapes my household. It is something that we live with every single day and have for the last 27 or 8 years. And every time I walk into a voting booth or a polling place, which I now, volunteer at and work at, and, I'm an election moderator in my town. I've taken classes and certifications and all the things to be able to participate in a way that allows elections to function. Every time I walk into my polling place, I feel like it is a privilege and a responsibility to be there. It is our duty as citizens who are old enough to register to vote and vote to actually get out there and do the job of voting. Whether you are standing in a line for hours, which I have done before in New York City, or you are running into your small town that takes about 37 seconds, because I know that, voting is your responsibility and it is your privilege. And you should not let it go by. And so when I'm laying in bed at 3 o'clock in the morning, not able to sleep, thank you, menopause, I am thinking about things like food insecurity, like people being taken away from their families unnecessarily, like the cost of goods and services going up for every American and people around the world because of the decisions that a certain group of people are making, and they're not making them on behalf of the whole public. They're making them on behalf of a very, very, very tiny contingent of people. So before you tune out thinking that this is just another civics lecture, because it's not going to be, I want you to hang tight, because we're going to talk about real money, real people, and real ways that you can make a difference. Because I don't know about you, but this stuff really does keep me up at night. I worry about, I'm an Italian girl. One of my love languages is feeding people. I like to feed people. And so when I see that there are people out there who cannot afford to feed themselves, that gives me physical anxiety. It makes me so anxious. I feel it, and I just feel it. And so I really want to talk about why local elections matter, why state elections matter, and why federal elections matter, and why we vote so often, right? We just voted last year for federal elections, right? But now we're voting in a lot of places across the country for local elections. And we tend to get out and vote during federal elections, the big ones for presidents and governors and senators and congresspeople. But the smaller elections are actually potentially more important for you as a resident of your town, right? It's city council elections, it's mayor races, state legislators, school boards. I sit on the school board. I'm actually an elected official in my town. County commissioners, planning and zoning. I can go on and on and on about all the elected positions that people carry in their small towns. And a lot of us don't even really understand how local government, local small town politics work. When you skip a local election, you are not stepping out of the process. You're stepping aside, and that leaves a vacuum that is often filled by special interests, by those with the most time and the most money and the most access to be able to sit on these boards and these committees that make an impact on our everyday lives in our towns. At the state level, officials shape how, government and federal programs work. They're implemented, or how they're implemented, or whether or not they are expanded. And at the federal level, we're talking about national policy and funding, right? But the route from law to everyday life is long and winding, right? It starts in your own home. Did you know that only 27% of eligible voters show up for local elections on off-cycle years? This year is an off-cycle year. It's not a big national federal election. It's not a midterm election either, which is coming up next year when we vote for Congress again. So we're having small elections that typically don't get the attendance or the participation from townspeople because they don't think it's important. They don't think it's important, or they don't even recognize how important it is to elect your local mayor or your local planning and zoning board or your local library board, right? 27% of eligible voters show up for local elections. That makes a small amount of people responsible for everything that goes on in your town. Your property taxes, if you have affordable housing, if your schools are getting funded, that's all where that comes from. So if you have ever complained about the potholes or the taxes or the cost of groceries in where you live in your town, this is where your vote really counts. Don't wait for the big one, the big election to show up. Don't wait another 3 years for the presidential election to get out and vote. Get out and vote today. Early voting is happening across the country in small towns and large cities. It started last week, actually, and it goes through Election Day. And Election Day is in next Tuesday, so it's in 6 days. I'm recording this on the Wednesday before Election Day. Do not sit out the small elections. And we're going to talk about what's at stake right now, because if you've had your head in the sand, and I understand why you want to put your head in the sand. I totally get it, right? I just can't look at the news anymore. It makes me so angry. It makes me upset. It makes me sad. It makes me all of those things. It makes me all of those things too. And maybe because I can't escape it, because it's part of the daily conversation in my house just based on my husband's job, that I'm more tuned in and I really understand what's going on and I pay attention. And even I want to step away from it, and he definitely wants to step away from it. Putting your head in the sand is also doing yourself a disservice. The idea that we shouldn't be talking politics or religion or sex or any of those things at our dinner tables is ludicrous and ridiculous. We should be able to have these conversations easily and readily, and not with so much disdain and aggression toward people that believe differently than us. Listen, I don't know that I'm going to be able to have a rational conversation with you if you say to me I support a pedophile. I don't know. But I know most people don't. And so I'm willing to sit down and have that conversation about food insecurity and how we're going to make sure that everybody in our town eats, and how we're going to make sure that everybody in our town has a jacket to wear this winter when it starts to snow in a few weeks, and how we're going to be able to afford housing and schools and all of the things. I want to have those conversations, and I'm not afraid to have those conversations. And I think it's really important for all of us to be able to have those conversations in smart, rational, data-driven, educated ways. And we can all accomplish that if we just pay attention. So there are big things happening in our government right now because we are shut down. The government is shut down. The Republican Party has chosen not to come to the table to talk about health care for millions and millions of Americans because they think the other side should just give in to what they want. And what they want is to raise the cost of health care for tens of millions of Americans who already are struggling for that health care that they have currently, for their current coverage. That's number one. Number two, SNAP benefits. The Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program is currently in danger of shutting down and being disrupted because of the government shutdown. That happens on November 1st. It is October 29th. We are 3 days away from the 42 million people who rely on SNAP benefits to not have their benefit money. Their cards don't show up, their direct deposits, however they get that money, to get them through the month of not getting that. 42 million Americans in November, Thanksgiving month, will not get their SNAP benefits. In some states, food banks are already seeing surges. The demand, our military is also not getting paid. So they are standing in lines at food banks. How are we allowing our military servants who are giving up their lives and their livelihoods for this country to go without food? My rage is just, it's insane. This is not abstract, you guys. According to the U.S. Census Bureau, because I have done my research on this, 39.7 million people, that's 11.5% of Americans, live below the poverty line in the United States of America. In the richest country on the globe, 11.5% of Americans live below the poverty line. And that number shifts for children and single mother-based households. Families across the country depend on these benefits to buy their groceries. And when these programs are threatened, it is a direct impact on whether children and humans go hungry, whether seniors skip their meals, whether moms and dads choose to not pay the light bill so they can put SpaghettiOs on the table for their kids. These are not statistics to scroll past. These are our neighbors. These are our friends. And sometimes us. Voting comes into this because elected officials, federal and state, make the decisions that determine budget allocations for programs like SNAP, right? Eligibility, work requirements, emergency funds. There's a hurricane right now, Jamaica, it's hitting Cuba. Are we going to help those people? U.S. aid has been shut down. Where is our humanity? Where is our compassion for humanity? Where did that go? If we don't vote, we surrender our seat at the table when these decisions are made. And that, look at what that has done for us. Are you kidding me right now? I cannot stress it enough. The economic inequality and wealth concentration among individuals and corporations is out of control. Right? Let's take a look at the wealth of people, right? The top 20 billionaires in the United States have a combined net worth of approximately 2.7 trillion with a T dollars. And to put that in perspective, that's more than the current GDP, which is the gross domestic product, which, if you don't know what that means, it's the total market value of all goods and services produced within a country's borders. for a specific time period, right? So our GDP is less than $2 trillion, but the top 20 billionaires in the United States only have a net worth of 2.7, of almost 3 billion, or trillion with a T, dollars. So Elon Musk is worth about $400 billion right now. Jeff Bezos is worth about $250 billion right now. Larry Ellison is worth about $230 billion right now. Those are our top 3 that I have on this list. But then you have, Bill Gates and Warren Buffett and all the other people who are worth hundreds of billions of dollars each as humans. That's not their companies, that's them. That's their personal net worth. To put that into perspective, $1 million is 1,000 thousandths. What? So there's 6 zeros in a million, right? And a million seems attainable for a lot of people. If you make $100,000 a year for 10 years, your gross income is $1 million. Now, it's not what you bring home because you pay taxes and you put money away for savings and all the things, but $1 million is attainable for a lot of people over time. A billion is 1,000 millions. Let that sink in. There's 9 zeros behind a billion. And a trillion is 1,000 billions, or 1 million millions. That's got 12 zeros behind it. Nobody, in my humble opinion, should be a billionaire. Nobody needs $1 billion. And yet there are people out there, we know, we see them all the time, that have hundreds of billions in their bank accounts. Come on, guys. Come on. That's on the personal side. That's the billionaire side. On the corporate side, it gets even worse, right? Because profits continue to climb for companies, right? I'm going to just read this. The U.S. Bureau of Economic Analysis shows corporate profits increased by 5% in 2024. That is under the current administration's former tax code that they put in office the first time they got into office. Another study of America's largest 100 publicly traded corporations reported over 1.2 trillion with a T of profit in 2024. A lot of these companies don't pay their employees a fair wage, which is why they are on SNAP benefits. Right? When you combine all of this enormous wealth at the very top, corporate profits, personal profits, you have a widespread struggle for the bottom half of the country. Amazon does not, famously, they are known for not paying a living wage to their employees on the lower level. So think warehouse workers, think delivery drivers, right? Therefore, that requires them to potentially work multiple jobs or rely on government assistance for food and services, right? Amazon just announced yesterday that they are laying off 30,000 workers. Their profit last year was $59 billion. And yet they're laying off 30,000 workers. Come on. Come on. Their CEO spent tens of millions of dollars on his wedding in Italy this summer. He calls the paparazzi so they can follow him around while he parades around his new wife, flashing their gross wealth, knowing that they are not paying the people that are putting them in the position that they are in. Without delivery drivers and factory workers and warehouse people, Amazon would not be what it is. It's disgusting what they are doing to their people. It's disgusting. They are choosing to underpay their staff. Stop using Amazon. Just stop. Do your research on Amazon and then go directly to the company and buy it from them. You don't need anything overnight. Go to the drugstore down the road and buy whatever you need for overnight. Cut it out. Don't act like you can't do it. Now let's talk about households below the poverty line and food insecurity, because this is really important. Here are some stats. The U.S. poverty rate under the official measure for 2024 was 10.6%, which translates again into 35.9 million people. We talked about that a little bit. 1 in 7 households experience food insecurity. How many houses do you have on your street? One of them is probably or potentially experiencing some kind of food insecurity right now. Think about that. Take a walk up and down your street. Don't think about who it could potentially be, but just take a walk up and down your street. I don't even know how many houses I have on my street. 30? 40? I don't know. That means 1 in 7 households lack access to enough affordable and nutritious food. 47.4 million Americans live in those households. That's single parent households, that are veterans, that's elderly, that's people with disabilities, people who are being exploited by the companies they work for by not being paid a fair and livable wage. Those are the people. And SNAP benefits don't cost our government that much. What they do, while they do cost the government, or that program, it also helps to stimulate the economy because we spend that money. They spend that money back in the grocery stores. They spend that money at farm stands when farm stands take SNAP benefits. When those benefits go away, that money is not going to be spent, obviously, because they're not getting it, so they're not going to spend it. And now, what's going to happen at those grocery stores? There's going to be less for the people who can afford, who don't live on or don't rely on benefits. There's going to be less for us to choose from because they're going to stop providing for us because, oh my gosh, supply and demand, right? It's going to be more expensive. Prices are going to go up for us again. Stuff is going to go to waste because people aren't buying it. So don't think for 1 minute that because you're not on SNAP benefits that you are not going to be impacted by it, because you absolutely are. Whether you see it this month or next month or the month after, because who the hell knows how long this shit's going to go on. Millions and millions of people unnecessarily are being impacted by this. That's when voting decisions come into play. They affect funding for food assistance and social safety nets and work requirements and minimum wage, which has not been raised in a friggin' million years. And that's why we're in the situation we're in, is because we're not paying our people. Community funding. These are real outcomes and real things that people rely on and need. There are companies out there who are stepping up. Aldi, I just saw the other day, is offering $40 Thanksgiving dinners. And they give you a list of like 20 things that are in the dinner. You can go buy a Thanksgiving dinner for $40. If you can afford to buy multiple dinners, go out and buy dinners from Aldi, right? Research the companies that are helping to create potentially change in policies, that are giving back to their communities. Ben & Jerry's is famous for doing that. Tom's Shoes is famous for doing that. There are lots of really great companies out there that are doing really great work in our communities that are being overshadowed by these loser companies like Amazon, because it's all about the profit. How about it's all about we take care of each other? How about it's that? How about we do that, ladies and gentlemen? So here is, speaking of taking care of each other, what can we do? What can you do today, right? So we laid out the context. Voting matters. It matters because of all the things that are happening right now don't need to be happening had we voted a different way, right? So pay attention. Programs are at risk. Wealth and profits are enormous. Households are struggling. Corporations can help. Individuals can help. And you can help by making sure that you are registered to vote and you vote in every single election. Please do not wait for a presidential year. Local elections matter, and they matter more to your pocketbook in your town. Are your taxes going up? Are there books being banned in your libraries? Are your schools being funded appropriately and properly? Make sure that you are registered and you are getting out to vote. Understand your issues, right? Look at what is at stake in your state and local elections. Have conversations. Go to meetings where your mayor is, where your town councils are. Go to your school board meetings. Trust me, I'm on the school board. We like it when people come to our meetings. And yes, we have gotten yelled at before. For a long time, we got yelled at because we actually did have a budget issue that we needed to fix. We're still fixing it. But we actually like when people participate in these kinds of things because it gives us more information on how we can better our community. Local officials are being elected. What do they stand for? Do they stand for the same values that you have? Engage your network. Please don't be afraid to have conversations with your people about this. Talk to your neighbors, talk to friends, talk to coworkers, especially if you live in the same town, about why you're voting. I'm voting because I think children deserve to be fed. I think everybody deserves to be fed. I think people deserve to have roofs over their heads. I think everybody deserves to be paid a living wage. Share information about candidates. Go talk to the candidates themselves and ask them for their thoughts and their values and their opinions and why they're passionate about what they're voting for, where they're voting in their state and their federal elections or on their committees that they sit on. I'm friends with my state rep. I love her. I can call her and just be like, hey, what are you doing? I'm friends with my congresswoman. I worked for her last year. I helped her win the election. My team helped her win the election. I can text her right now if I wanted to and say, what is actually going on? You don't have to have that kind of intimate personal relationship with your people, but it is helpful to know what your leaders are voting on and what they're talking about and what is passionate for them. And you want to make sure that you are one of those people that they're passionate about. Support efforts, right? Right now, food banks are in need. They're in need of money and they're in need of donations. So donate, but also volunteer. If there's a food bank near you, volunteer. If there is, another organization that you are passionate about, volunteer in your community. It is so rewarding when you are in a place where you are volunteering and you are giving back to your community. I can't tell you how much I love to volunteer, right? So make sure that you are doing that and you are getting involved, right? Advocate for your town, advocate for your people. Know where your local businesses are and what they support, right? And figure out how to get access to food programs to help feed your neighbors. Contact your elected officials before and after the elections. Just because somebody you didn't like or didn't want to get elected got elected doesn't mean that they can't hear from you. Those are my favorite phone calls to make, to ask the questions, to show up at the meetings and ask the questions and listen and pay attention, to say, hey, you know what? How about this? How about that? How about we have this conversation? It's okay. They work for you. I think we forget, America, that elected officials work for us. We are their boss. We hired them, not the other way around. So when they are knocking down historic wings and White Houses and putting up $250 million ugly gold ballrooms, they're doing it with your money. And they're doing it, and you didn't give them authorization to do that. And they work for you. Don't lose sight of that. Stay informed. After you vote, keep track of how your elected officials are performing. Are they doing what you want them to do? Are they doing what they agreed to do? Hold them accountable when they vote on budgets and social programs and taxation, right? Watch for threats to keep programs like SNAP and Medicaid and local social services in your area. It's very important that we are all, vigilant, especially right now when, you don't think it's going to affect you. And then all of a sudden you're like, hey, why did my grocery bill just jump another $200? Or how come my electric bill is jumping again when we were told that our electric bills are going down? So let's wrap this all up and bring it home because we're at the 30-minute mark and I don't like to keep you guys longer than that. You know what? Your vote is more than a check in a box. It is your voice. And you can walk around your house and, yell and scream and pontificate and be angry and talk about it and rant and rave and do all the things. But if you are not getting out to the polls and voting, it doesn't matter. Right? So your participation in showing up shapes how resources are distributed, how communities are supported, and how vulnerable people are protected or not. When millions of dollars are concentrated in the hands of a few billionaires, when corporate profits are soaring, and when household food insecurity is real, when assistance programs are under threat, we have to show up. Because the opposite is silence, and silence is deadly. Here is your call to action. Make sure you are registered to vote, confirm your registration, and get out there and vote. They are voting early in your town if your town is having elections. Tuesday is election day, November 4th. Make sure that you vote on or before that day. Find out who's on your ballot and understand their values and what they're running on. Research one issue that matters to you. Food security, local budgets, local housing, planning and zoning, social services. And find out what the people who are running on those things those issues that are important to you, what their beliefs are. Vote. Full stop. Vote. And then after you vote, do one more thing. Talk to a person who might not vote, who you know didn't vote in the last election because they just didn't like the person on either side, which is bullshit. Because it's not about the person. It's about what they're planning on doing, what their administration is planning on doing, what they are going to be giving and helping the American people for and with. Encourage those people that typically don't vote to get out and vote. Ask them what they care about. Share why you're voting and why it's so important that every single one of us gets out there to vote. Our democracy is stronger when we participate, and our society is fairer when we hold our elected officials accountable to all of us, not just the most privileged. So here's my midlife menopausal mic drop moment for today. Voting isn't just about choosing leaders, it's about choosing values. We can tell you about the cost of living, about the unfairness of the wealth gaps, about the broken systems. I can talk about that all day long. But unless you show up at the polls and voice your opinion, you are yelling into the void. I might be yelling into the void right now, but it's making me feel better. This election season, whether it is your town council or your governor, there are a couple of gubernatorial races, New Jersey, I'm looking at you. Make your voice heard. Because when women, especially middle-aged menopausal moms, vote, we can change the world. Again, early voting is happening right now across the country. Election day is on Tuesday, November 1st. Please, please, please don't skip it, you guys. All right, that's my yell for today. Thank you for listening. I hope this inspired you and gave you a little bit more information about, the stuff that's actually happening in the world. And it might give you a little bit of a fire to speak up. Call me if you need any help. Reach out. Stay informed. And please go vote. I love you. Have a good day. Mwah.